Hello friends, today's topic of discussion is monuments in Delhi modern period. We will try to talk about the various monuments which were established during the modern period in Delhi and how these monuments are relevant from the historical point of view. As we see that all monuments, they try to communicate some kind of an important period of that particular times, and at the same time we also see that they have a lot of significance and importance in the framework of the establishment. And as when we talk about monuments, how they are related to the history, how they are related to the culture, how they are related to the heritage, so all these kinds of aspects, they are related when you talk about the monuments. In the context of Delhi, as we are aware that Delhi is the seat of power, and how Delhi has been important not only from the point of view of the modern period when the capital of the colonial rule or the British Empire was shifted from Calcutta to Delhi, but Delhi has been important from that ancient period when you have Indraprastha, and at the same time we also have seen that various rulers of Delhi, they have established various cities of Delhi. That is why we have seen that there are 7 cities in Delhi which were established over a period of time, beginning from the ancient period and thereafter the medieval period, and then we come to the modern times. And in the modern times as well, how Delhi has been also seat of power, that way that when democracy was established in India after the colonial rule, and Delhi has been the seat of power of all the people, those who have been associated in the corridors of power. It is the place where our parliament is located, and we also have seen that the Rashtrapati Bhavan, the Prime Minister's house, and the various ministers, the Supreme Court of India, all of them, they are established in Delhi. So from that point of view, when we try to see the various kinds of monuments, we see that how the issue of civilization has been important, that how India has been seen not only as a nation or as a country, rather as a civilization where various kinds of continuous traditions could be seen over a period of time. And when one is talking about the monuments, one also sees that there are various kinds of architectural styles in all these kinds of monuments, and these kinds of concerns, they have a lot of value when one is trying to interpret them in the historical context. And we also see that the issue of progress and development is also in that sense related when we find that the kind of monuments which are being made at a place. And so beginning from the period when we see that the revolt of 1857, when we find that it was seen to be the first great rebellion in that sense, and before that also we find that different people, they revolted against British at different points of time, but it was a huge rebellion which we see in the framework of the revolt of 1857. And the Mutiny Memorial, which is situated in front of the old telegraph building, Kashmiri Gate, could be seen, and it was also known as Ajitgarh. This was built in the memory of all those who had fought in the Delhi field force, British and Indian, during Indian Rebellion of 1857. And it was established by the Public Works Department at the government expense in 1863. And in 1972, we find that on the 25th anniversary of India's independence, Indian government renamed monument Ajitgarh, place of unvanquished, and erected a plaque stating that enemy mentioned on memorials were immortal martyrs for Indian freedom that way. So we find that how the people, those who were seen as enemies by the British, they were actually the freedom fighters, those who laid their lives to save India from the colonial clutches. And we also have seen that how when the capital was shifted from Calcutta to Delhi, and we find that when the capital would be shifted, then administrative infrastructure definitely would be required, and we find that thousands and acres of land was required to begin the construction of the Viceroy's house, and as well as the adjacent Central Secretariat between 1911 and 1916. By relocating the Raisina and the Malcha villages which were there, that existed there under the land, and Acquisition Act. So this act came so that these areas, they could be acquired, and when these areas would be acquired, then the construction would definitely begin. And we find that once the construction began for the different places which were built during this time, and how the architects Edwin Lutyens and who was there, and Baker, both of them, they played an important role, Lutyens and Baker. That is why we call it that Lutyens Delhi. So how they played an important role in terms of construction of the various places which were built by them at that point of time, and how the head of state of India, Rashtrapati Bhavan, which was made, which is a 340 room main building, and where we have the Mughal Gardens. Earlier they were known as Mughal Gardens, and then they have been renamed as Amrit Udyan. These are the presidential gardens, and the main palace building was formerly known as Viceroy's House. And if one sees in terms of area, it is the largest residence of head of state in the world. So when we talk about Rashtrapati Bhavan, we see that the kind of nomenclatures which have been given in terms of Mughal Gardens, they were all given by British. And even the New Delhi, where we find the various kinds of roads, whether they are Humayun Road or Babur Road or Prithviraj Road. So all these kinds of nomenclatures, they were being done by the British, and over a period of time, different governments, they have changed the names of the roads and the places as well. And when you talk about the kind of contribution which has been made by the Indians in the sense after independence, we find that how C. Rajagopalachari, when he became the first Governor General of India, he preferred to stay in a few rooms, which is now the family wing of the President, and how converted then Viceroy's apartments to be the guest wing. And after that, when Rajendra Prasad assumed charge as the first President of India on 26 January 1950, and when he occupied this building, it was renamed as the Rashtrapati Bhavan, or the President's House. So all these places, they have a lot of history, and when we see that the Indians, when they entered these areas of power, then they realized that they no longer needed the kind of luxury which was available to the viceroys, as we have seen that Rajagopalachari did not live in the areas where Viceroy was living, and he only preferred to stay in few rooms. And this is what happened with the subsequent presidents of India, that they stayed in the residential areas and they never occupied those areas which were converted into the guest wings. And we also find that the center of the main wing of building, underneath main dome, is the Darbar Hall, which was known as the throne room during the British rule, when it had thrones for Viceroy and Viceroy, his wife. And we also see that Amrit Udyan opens for the general public viewing in February-March every year during the Udyanotsav. And we also see when one visits Rashtrapati Bhavan that there is a column which is known as the Jaipur column, which is distinctly peculiar, crown on top, glass star springing out of bronze lotus bloom. So that is visible when one is climbing down the stairs, and there are the huge stairs near the central dome. So these are some of the important architectural features of Rashtrapati Bhavan. And when one is talking about these kinds of architectural features and how they were being borrowed, and they were also being in a way used by Lutyens and Baker, both of them, in terms of the construction of the various buildings which were being built at this point of time, and how their designing in that sense was trying to reflect the kind of imperial kind of an attitude which British had towards India. And when the construction began in 1921, in the opening ceremony of the Parliament House, when one is talking about Parliament, then it was called as the Central Legislative Assembly, and it was performed on 18 January 1927 by Lord Irwin, who was then the Viceroy of India. And when you talk about the House of Parliament, basically it is the area where you have those kinds of democratic traditions, And we also see that the Parliament Museum, which was opened in 2006, stands next to the Parliament House, and which is the shape is circular, which is based on the Ashok Chakra. And we also see that separate walls were constructed for the sessions of the Chamber of Princes, State Council and Central Legislative Assembly as well. And when you talk about the kind of significance which you find with regard to the central hall of the Parliament, which is circular in shape, dome shape, the Central Hall is a place of historical importance in India for various reasons. Firstly, we find that the transfer of colonial power to provisional government under Nehru took place here. So we find that how India achieved its independence because of the kind of transfer of power which happened during this time. And we have critics, those who in a way say that why it was known as the transfer of power, that how over a period of time the Indians, they assume the power in such a manner that they started to in a way imitate their colonial rulers, and the masses no longer remained important in the framework of democracy, the kind of traditions which were there. And what happened during the times of partition, the kind of violence which was perpetrated at this point of time, it was also being neglected by the colonial rulers, those who were rejoicing in the sense that they were able to secure or achieve power for themselves. Another important reason was the framing of the Constitution by the Constituent Assembly at this place, and which took place in this very hall. And the Constituent Assembly met during the period from December 9, 1946 to November 26, 1949 to draft the Constitution of India. So we have important significance of this particular place in that sense. And when I was talking about the hall of this Parliament, then we find that at the commencement of the first session after each general election to Lok Sabha, and at commencement of the first session of each year, the President addresses both the houses of the Parliament assembled together in this hall, and it is also used in the joint sittings of the Parliament. And many a times we also see that when houses are in session, it is used by the members for the informal discussions as well. And we also see that also used for the special occasions when members of Parliament are addressed by distinguished heads of the states of other countries as well. So apart from the places which are very relevant from the point of democracy, where we find the elected head of the state at the Rashtrapati Bhavan or President's house, or where we see Parliament, and recently we have seen that the new Parliament has been constructed as well. And so this we'll discuss later when we'll come to some of the areas of the 21st century. So, but before that, we can also talk about some of the places which have a lot of significance from different reasons, maybe religious, and how the Baha'i house of worship, Lotus Temple, is one of them, and how it was built in 1986. And when you talk about the architect, then we find that Fariboz Sahaba was the architect, and we find that it is very, very charming to the people, those who are coming to Delhi, and these monuments, they have been visited by them at different points of time, and the kind of architecture which is there, and it is one of the prominent places of the city. And a number of awards in terms of architecture, they have been given to this place. And we find that by scriptures, they state that no pictures, statues or image be displayed within the house of worship, and no pulpits of altars be incorporated as an architectural feature. So it is notable for its design of lotus flower, and we find that the design for the house of worship is composed of 27 freestanding marble-clad petals which are arranged in clusters of 3 to form 9 sides. And the 9 doors of the Lotus Temple, they open onto a central hall which is around 40 meter tall. We also see the surface of the house of worship is of white marble from Penteli mountain in Greece, and we also find in the complex the 9 surrounding ponds and the gardens as well. So we see that not only monuments which are concerned from the political sphere, but at the same time we also see monuments from the religious sphere, as well as we have seen in the case of the Lotus Temple. We also see that the other monuments which have a lot of significance in that context, and how the All India War Memorial, which was a war memorial, India Gate, was also built, and it is being compared to the Gateway of India in Bombay, and it was also designed by Sir Edwin Lutyens. And we also see that it is a memorial to the soldiers of undivided British Indian Army, those who died in the period 1914 to 1924 in the First World War in France, Flanders, Mesopotamia, Persia, East Africa, Gallipoli, and elsewhere in Near and Far East in the Third Anglo-Afghan War. And we find that numerous servicemen's names, they have been inscribed, including some soldiers and officers from the United Kingdom. They are inscribed on India Gate. And we also see that how it has been an important landmark from the point of view of the center of the city, and how India Gate is visited by so many people, those who are visiting Delhi. So from the monument point of view, it has a lot of significance, it has a lot of history which is attached from the colonial point of view, and how Indian soldiers, they were also part of the British Army in terms of fighting various kinds of war. And in 1971 we find after following the Bangladesh Liberation War, a small simple structure consisting of a black marble plinth with a reversed rifle capped by war helmet bounded by 4 eternal flames was built beneath soaring memorial archway, and it was called as Amar Jawan Jyoti, or the flame of immortal soldier. And since 1971 it has served as India's tomb of unknown soldiers. So we find that this kind of a place, Amar Jawan Jyoti, has been very, very relevant from that point of view, that we are paying some kind of a tribute to the people, those who have become martyrs for the country. And we also see that how it was a part of the work of the Imperial War Graves Commission, which came into existence in December 1917 for building the war graves and memorials to soldiers, those who were killed in the First World War. And we also see its significance in the sense that the Republic Day parade starts from the Rashtrapati Bhavan and passes around India Gate, and even now it has so much of charm and some kind of an importance that so many people, despite many times we find that it is also raining on the Republic Day, but we'll find that people, they assemble at the place, and we also see that various guests, those who are the heads of states of different countries, they are also being invited on this day, and they serve as guests there. And the parade is very important from the cultural point of view as well, where we'll find that various states, etc., they also participate in terms of showcasing their skills and their importance in that sense. We also see that how 73-foot cupola, which was inspired by 6th century pavilion from Mahabalipuram, and this kind of an inspiration could be seen from the India Gate point of view, and how Lutyens used 4 Delhi order columns to support the domed canopy and its chhajja. So we find that how various kinds of traditions from different places, they were being borrowed by the people, those who were there, in terms of creating the new monuments, but at the same time we'll also see that they were really influenced by the concerns of imperialism, because they wanted to make those monuments in such a manner that they appear to be imperialist in nature. And then when one is talking about India Gate, we also find that under canopy on a pedestal with the royal coat of arms and inscription George V R.I. Rex Imperator, or King Emperor, there was a 50 feet tall marble statue by Charles Sargent Jagger of King George V in his coronation robes. So this kind of a statue of King George V was there at this point, and we find that it was built during that particular period, and it was some kind of sign of imperial attitude and approach, where Indians, they were being communicated that how the rulers they were there in Delhi. And apart from these kinds of monuments, we also see other centers, we also see different spaces from the commercial point of view, and we'll talk about all these kinds of aspects in our next lecture, when we'll talk about the other areas of Delhi which are modern in nature, which were built during the colonial period and thereafter, and their significance in the history of India, and how they're also linked to the aspects of heritage and culture. So thank you very much.